Would the senator from Texas yield for a question without yielding the floor?
I'm happy to yield for a question without yielding the floor.
I want to thank the senator for his efforts here today and the weeks that have led us here. And I would ask the senator from Texas, let me preface this by saying, so much of the focus, if you read the coverage or you watch the news, all the focus is on the what is going to happen, the process, the votes, who's going to vote what. And I think that's important, and we're going to have a conversation about that in the moments to come. But what I'm most enthusiastic about here over the last few hours is there's an increasing focus on the why. Why are people so passionate about Obamacare, in particular those who oppose it? Why are the growing number of Americans coming out and saying that Obamacare is a bad idea? And why are Republicans united against Obamacare? Because let's be clear, we do have a tactical debate going on within the Republican Party about the right way to accomplish stopping Obamacare. What there is no debate about among Republicans is that this is a bad idea for the country. Why are we so passionate about that? And so I only speak for myself when what I'm about to say, but I think it speaks for others, and we'll ask the senator from Texas to comment in a moment about this. But, I think sometimes when you're born and raised, as I have been, your whole life in this country, I think, just speaking for myself, I think sometimes it's easy to take for granted how special America is. Because this is all you've known, and this is all we've ever been around, so we just take that for granted a little bit. I had a blessing, though, similar to the same one that the senator from Texas had. I actually grew up around people that knew what life was like somewhere else. They knew that what America had is special because they lived somewhere else, and they knew what the world was like outside of America. It's a reminder that what makes America different and special from the rest of the world is that it is one of the few places in human history where no matter where you start out in life, no matter how poor you were, no matter how poor your parents were, no matter how disconnected they may be from power, if you are willing to work hard and you are willing to sacrifice, you can achieve a better life. Now, for us Americans, that seems, of course, right? I mean, that's the way it's always been. It's not. In fact, for almost all of human history, that has not been the case. In much of the world, that's still not the case. For almost all of human history, almost everyone that's ever lived is basically trapped by whatever you were born into. So if your parents were poor, you were poor. If your parents were farmers, you were a farmer. And I want you to think about what that means for a moment. Imagine for a second, because all of us have dreams and hopes when you're young especially. Imagine for a second if you are someone with talent and dreams and aspirations and ambitions, but knowing that in the society you live in, that none of that matters because you're not from the right people. You don't come from the right family. Imagine how frustrating that must be. That is the story of humanity up until about 200 years ago, when the American experiment began, based on something very powerful that the senator from Texas talked about a moment ago, the idea that every single one of us has a God-given right to go as far as our talent and our work will take us. And the result is the most extraordinary story in all of human history. And I point that out today because I remember growing up knowing my parents wanted me to clearly understand that I would have a chance to do things they never had the chance to do because I lived in an extraordinary place, unlike anything that had ever existed before. Fast forward to today and the challenges we face as a country. The one thing that most worries me as I analyze American politics and the state of our country is that there's a growing number of people that are starting to doubt whether that dream is still true. A growing number of people that are starting to wonder, is it still true that if you work hard and you sacrifice, you can get ahead? You know why they're doubting that? Because they are working hard. They're working harder than they ever have. They are sacrificing. And not only are they not getting ahead, they're struggling to keep from falling behind. And there are a lot of reasons why this is happening. Globalization has changed the nature of our economy, so has advances in information technology. We have an emerging skills gap in this country where, unfortunately, many Americans have not acquired the skills needed for these new middle-class jobs in the 21st century. We have to address those things. Societal breakdown is real. It's having an impact. In fact, it's one of the leading causes of poverty in the United States, and that's troubling too. But for those of us who are in the federal government and in the policymaking branch of government, I think it's time we realize that one of the leading threats to the American dream is the policies that are being pursued at the federal level. Policies that are undermining the free enterprise system. And here's why that's important. Because the only economy, the only economic system in human history that rewards hard work, sacrifice, and merit is the American free enterprise system. And the evidence is all over the world. Look all over the world at people whose families have lived in poverty for generations, who now have joined the middle class. They live in countries that are trying to copy the American economic example. They don't live in countries that embrace socialism. They don't live in countries that embraced big government. They live in places that are trying to move towards free enterprise. Free enterprise has eradicated more poverty than all the government programs in the world combined. That's the story of free enterprise. And that's why it is startling that over the last few decades, federal policies have contributed steadily to undermining the free enterprise system. We can talk about all those policies, but Obamacare is an example of that. You ask yourself, well, how does Obamacare undermine the free enterprise system? Well, there's a few examples. First of all, because of the disruptive costs and the rules created by Obamacare, there are thousands of middle-class jobs that will not be created. These are jobs that were going to be created, that someone wanted to create. I met a restaurant owner. I think he was from Louisiana. He testified before the Small Business Committee. He wants to open up new restaurants. He has specific sites in mind. He knows he can make it work. He's not going to do it. And he cites Obamacare as the reason why. Those are jobs that were going to be created that do not now exist because of Obamacare. That undermines the free enterprise system. Obamacare has a mandate. It's already been discussed here on the floor. It says that if you have more than 50 full-time workers, you have to live by a bunch of mandates that it creates. You know what the result of that has been? Businesses that are close to that number are deciding, I don't want to have 50 full-time employees. I want to have 49 or 48, so that doesn't apply to me because I can't afford for it to apply to me. So you know what that means? Those are jobs that were going to be created. Or those are jobs that are still there, but now they're part-time. That means you've lost money out of your paycheck. It also has redefined, by the way, Obamacare has redefined what part-time work is. An American economic reality is that part-time work is anything less than 40 hours, except for Obamacare. It's anything less than 30 hours. So what's happening? People that are working part-time are losing their hours. Real-world example, SeaWorld in Florida just announced it's moving over 2,000 of its part-time employees from 32 hours a week to 28 hours a week. That's not just a statistic. These are people that are losing 4 hours worth of pay a week. The very people that this bill is supposed to be helping, the working class, the middle class, the people that are trying to get ahead, are the people that it's directly hurting. And that's just one example. There are multiple. We could be here, you may be here all night, but Senator Cruz, but you could be here all night just citing examples of real people that are being hurt in this way. This is the experience of this. And by the way, one more point that hasn't been talked about enough. Medicare Advantage is a program that gives seniors choices. It has competition. Different companies that provide Medicare Advantage benefits, they compete for the business of seniors by offering additional benefits. My mom is a Medicare Advantage recipient. She's on a Medicare Advantage plan. And she is heavily marketed every year because, like all seniors are in that area, because they want her business. And how do they compete? They offer transportation. They offer free pharmaceutical. They offer, whatever it may be. Well, guess what? Obamacare takes money out of Medicare Advantage. By the way, not to save Medicare, to fund Obamacare. You know what's going to happen later this year, early in January? These seniors are going to get a letter in the mail saying, your Medicare Advantage plan no longer offers X or Y, whatever some of these benefits are. This is who's being hurt by this. So why are we passionate? Why are we here about this? Look, we have an ideological objection to the government being involved in this way, in such a widespread way in healthcare. But beyond that now, we are passionate about this opportunity that we have to stop Obamacare because of the impact this is having on real people. And at the end of the day, that is what we're fighting for here. We're not fighting against Obamacare. We are fighting for these people. This includes people, by the way, that voted for the president. This includes, by the way, people that didn't vote for me or for the senator from Texas or for the senator from Utah. We're fighting for them because they're going to be hurt by this. If your dream is to open up your own business one day and to grow it, Obamacare is hurting you. It's going to make it harder for you to be able to do that. If your dream is to do what my parents did, which is to work a job so your kids could one day have a career, Obamacare is hurting you. It could cost you the insurance you have now that you're happy with. It could cost you hours out of your paycheck. It could cost you your very job. What about if you're working part-time while you go to school at night? You're paying your way through school as a part-time worker. Obamacare is hurting you. You're going to lose hours at work potentially because of this. What about if you've graduated from college? You finished college, you've done everything that's been asked of you, right? What do we tell young people in America? Graduate with good grades, go to college, get your degree, and you can have a career and a better life. What do they want to do? They want to graduate from college, get married, buy a house, start a family. A lot of people are having to put that off now. For a lot of reasons, Obamacare will be one of them. You know why? Because that job that you wanted, that career you wanted to start, it may not be created now because of Obamacare. What about if you've worked your whole life, like the 3 million seniors that live in Florida, worked their whole life with the hope of retiring with dignity and security and stability? You sign up for a Medicare Advantage plan, and now Obamacare is hurting you. And there's the irony in all this. The very people they said this plan, this bill, this idea would help are the very people it's hurting the most. That, by the way, is the experience of big government. I know that big government sounds appealing sometimes. You know, when you're hurting, when you're struggling to make ends meet, and a politician comes and says, I'm going to create a new program entitled, Jobs for Americans or Health Care for Everybody, and you're struggling. This stuff sounds enticing. The problem is it never works. It never works. Anytime and everywhere it's ever been tried, it has failed. And it will fail again. It doesn't work. In fact, big government hurts the people who are trying to make it. If you're a multi-billion-dollar corporation, if you're a millionaire and billionaire, look, you may not like big government, but you can afford to deal with it. If you're a major corporation in America, you can hire the best lawyers in America to navigate whatever complex rules the government throws at you. If you really don't like it, you can hire the best lobbyists in this city to write the laws in your favor, or try to get them written in your favor. But if you're trying to start a business by using the free Wi-Fi at Starbucks, if you're using the spare bedroom at your home to start a business, you can't navigate all that big government stuff. You can't afford to hire a lobbyist to get a waiver from Obamacare. That's the irony. The very people that big government promises to help are the people it hurts the most. Are the people it hurts the most. And we're seeing it again with Obamacare. Who's getting waivers from Obamacare? The people who can afford to influence it. It's the experience of big government. It's the experience of Obamacare. And that's unfair. That's just not fair. It's not fair in America for people who are willing to work hard and to sacrifice not to be able to achieve a better life. That's wrong. And the only way to assure that those opportunities are there are to embrace the free enterprise system, not to undermine it or to try to replace it with an expansion of government that in the end will collapse under its own weight. But that's the direction we're headed in right now. You want to know what the biggest issue facing America politically is? It's not whether Republicans or Democrats win the next election. It's whether we're going to continue to be an exceptional country where anyone from anywhere can accomplish anything, or whether we're going to become just like the rest of the world. Another powerful country, another rich country, another big economy, but no longer the place where hard work and sacrifice is enough. That's the choice we're being asked to make on issue after issue that becomes before this body, and especially on this one. Now, look, I'll yield back to the senator from Texas by just saying this. My parents were never rich. I've told the story before, but I tell it not so much to tell you about me, but to tell you about us. Because this is our story, not just mine. My parents were never rich. Okay, they came here, they didn't know anybody, they had no money, no connections, barely spoke the language. They struggled. When they first came here, they struggled. They were discouraged. Sometimes they wondered if they made a mistake. Maybe they should have stayed back in Cuba, they thought. But they persevered. They hung in. 10 years after they had been here, my dad working as a bartender, my mom as a maid and a cashier, they bought their first home in 1966. In fact, by 1971, they were so optimistic about the future that after they had both turned over 40 years of age, they had me and my sister a year and a half after that. Talk about optimistic about the future. America fundamentally changed their lives because of free enterprise. My dad had a job at those hotels because someone who had access to money risked it, took a risk, and said, I'm going to invest this money in opening up a hotel because I believe in my idea. And because someone took a risk, my dad had a job. My mom had a job. They weren't rich. We never owned multiple homes. We never had a yacht. We never traveled to Europe. Nothing wrong with any of those things. But they lived the American dream. You know why? Because they lived a life no one in their family history had ever lived in terms of security, stability, and they were able to provide for their children every opportunity they themselves never had. This is what we know as the American dream, about being able to fulfill your God-given potential, whatever it may be. And it is what is at play here right now. Because there are millions of people in this country trying to do just that. Millions of people across America that are trying to do what my parents were able to do for me and what your parents were able to do for you. And our job here is to make it easier for them to do it, not harder. Our job here is to do everything we can to ensure that this is the one country on earth where that's still possible. And when we pass bills like ObamaCare that we claim help people like this, we're not helping them. We are hurting. And if we hurt that, we hurt the country. Because there can't be an America without an American dream. We can't be special and exceptional without the American dream. And that's what's being undermined by big government and by ObamaCare. And that, at the end of the day, is why we're so passionate about this. That's why this is an issue worth fighting for. And I would just ask the senator from Texas, as you were reading earlier today, stories and cases that you heard from around the country, that's what these people are telling us. That's what they're saying to us. They're saying all we want is a chance to turn our dreams into reality. All we want is a chance to be able to work hard and sacrifice so that we can achieve a better life. And all we want is for you guys to give us a chance. Isn't that what this issue is all about, Senator?
The junior senator from Florida is absolutely correct. I agree entirely. And let me say, Senator Rubio, you inspire me. Senator Marco Rubio is a critical national leader. When Senator Mike Lee began this fight, Marco Rubio was there on day one. From the beginning, despite the howls of protest, despite official Washington saying that he should know better than to stand up against the D.C. establishment and stand for the people. And let me tell you, I don't know that there is any more effective, more articulate, more persuasive voice for conservative principles than my friend Marco Rubio. You know, his race in Florida 2 years ago was supposed to be impossible. I know it because I read it in the paper over and over again. Actually, many of the same people who were saying this fight's impossible, they all said with that same certitude, with that same deep baritone voice, this young lad Rubio has no chance winning this race. And if it were up to official Washington, they would have been right. By every measure of official Washington, the winner of that race had been picked. It was the governor of the state. All of Washington was behind him. And the only thing that was standing with Marco Rubio was the people. When he started, he was at 3% in the polls, a condition I know well because 2 years later I found myself in a very similar position. And yet he ran a campaign where he crisscrossed the state of Florida listening to the Florida people and getting support from the grassroots. And his victory in 2010 was a transformational moment in American politics. And it's also emblematic of what this fight is about right here. If you trust the talking heads on television, if you trust the reporters who tell us what's up and what's down, what's white and what's black, then Obamacare is here to stay. America just has to continue to suffer with it because we can never, ever, ever do anything to change it. And as long as this body, the United States Senate, believes the opinions of these 100 people in this room are more important than the American people, that will remain true, an accurate description, but that's not our job. Our job is to listen to the people. You know, Marco, his father, his parents were Cuban immigrants. His dad was a bartender. It's a family experience that resonates powerfully with me because I came from such a similar experience. But more importantly than that, Marco Rubio's story is the American story. There is not a member of this United States Senate, there is not a person in this country who doesn't have a story just like that somewhere in our backgrounds. The most unique aspect of the United States of America, I believe, is that we are all the children of those who risked everything for freedom. I think it's the most fundamental aspect of the DNA of what it means to be Americans. It's what unifies all of us, is that as Americans, we value liberty and opportunity above all else. And because of that experience, one of the things I admire about Senator Rubio is he views issues in this Senate not from how it impacts the titans of industry, the CEOs, but from how it impacts people like his dad and my dad, people who are struggling, who are climbing the economic ladder, who are seeking the American dream. And you know what? If you're today a bartender at a Nevada hotel, or if you're today washing dishes at a restaurant, like his father and my father, respectively, Obamacare is hurting you.